Greetings Keyforgers and welcome back. Today we are going to be going through a deck which I feel has one of the best Mavericks in a deck for Grim Reminders. Now, I might be proven wrong, but what I'll do is I'll go through the deck, we'll talk about the basics, the Aember Control, the Creature Control, the Artifact Control, the Efficiency, and then I'll talk about how I play it and why that Maverick is so important. So we have the Disappearing Mistress of Tree Cluster. It is Geistoid, Star Alliance and Mars. Turning over, we are starting out with Geistoid and we are starting out with that Maverick. Originally from Star Alliance, this is Strength from Diversity. You get an amber when you play it. It's put a capture and a discard pip in the deck. Play, each friendly non-Star Alliance creature captures 1 amber. Soul Tender, 1 power. Play, after Reap, move each amber from each Spectre creature to the common supply. Fully heal and ward each Spectre creature. The Grim Reaper, 4 power. If you are haunted, the Grim Reaper enters play ready. After Reap, purge an enemy creature and a friendly creature. Mehmet, 1 power. Play, destroyed, archive the top card of your discard pile. Junk Restoration is an action. You get an amber when you play it. It's put 2 discard pips in the deck. Play, discard the top 3 cards of your deck. You may put a card discarded this way into your hand. Haunted House is an artifact. This one has a draw enhancement. At the start of your turn, if you are not haunted, discard the top card of your deck. Omni ability, if you're haunted, gain 1 amber. Dark Lamp, 4 power. Each friendly creature with amber on it gains elusive. Play, capture 1 amber. A second Dark Lamp. Boo is an action. You get an amber when you play it and it's got a discard enhancement. Play, discard the top 10 cards of a player's deck. Tribute Collector, 4 power, 2 armor. Taunt, play and after fight, a friendly creature captures 1 amber. Echo Fly, 2 power, 1 armor and it has a discard enhancement. Action, return an action card from your discard pile to your hand. Scrap, archive the topmost action card from your discard pile. Well of Memory is an artifact. Play, purge any number of cards from your hand. For each card purged this way, return a card from your discard pile to your hand. Action, destroy Well of Memory. That is Geistoids. We are now moving on to Mars. Terrible Teammates is an action. You get an amber when you play it and it's got a draw enhancement. It's also put a draw and discard enhancement in the deck. Play, you may discard a non-Mars card. Shrink Ray Technician, 3 power. After Reap, choose an enemy creature. It gets -2 power until the end of turn. Scrap, choose the most powerful enemy creature. Until the end of the turn, that creature is considered to have 1 power and 0 armor. Scoop Up is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play, put a friendly non-Mars creature and an enemy non-Mars creature into your archives. If that enemy creature would leave your archives, return it to its owner's hand instead. Floexum Spewer, 2 power, splash attack 2. Each of Floexum Spewer's Mars neighbours gains splash attack 2. Mars First is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play, ready and use a friendly Mars creature. A second Mars First. Grabberjammer, 4 power, 1 armor with a discard enhancement. Your opponent's keys cost +1 amber. After fight, after Reap, capture 1 amber. A second Grabberjammer. Distant Void Prober, 4 power. After Reap, if you are haunted, your opponent's keys cost +3 amber during your next turn. Scrap, an enemy creature captures 1 amber from its own side. Brain Dart is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play, enrage an enemy creature. It captures 1 amber from its own side. Abductomatic, 4 power, 2 armor. After fight, if you are haunted, capture 2 amber. Scrap, the least powerful friendly creature, captures 2 amber. Red Death, 12 power. It put a damage and 2 discard enhancements in the deck. Red Death cannot ready unless you are haunted. After fight, gain 1 amber and draw a card. And finally on to Star Alliance. Unprepared is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play, choose a house, stun each creature of that house. Triangulator Newsome, 4 power with deploy. After Reap, if you are haunted, move each amber from Triangulator Newsom's neighbours to your pool. A second Newsom. Survey is an action. You get an amber when you play it, and this one has a damage enhancement. It put a draw enhancement in the deck. Play, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, discard one of them. Retro Technician Lee, 2 power. This one has 2 discard enhancements. If you are haunted, Retro Technician Lee enters play ready. After Reap, you may play a creature from your discard pile. A second Retro Technician Lee. Sabotage Mission is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play. Keys cost +1 amber for each different power value among friendly creatures during your opponent's next turn. Quintrino Warp is an action. Play. Choose a friendly creature and an enemy creature. Destroy those creatures and each creature that shares a house with either of them. Gain 1 amber. Event Horizon is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play. Discard cards from the top of your deck until you discard an action card or run out of cards. If you discarded an action card, play that card. A second Event Horizon and a third Event Horizon. Forging an Alliance is an action. You get an amber when you play it, and this one has a capture and discard enhancement. Play. Forge a key at +7 current cost, reduced by 1 amber to a maximum of 6 for each house represented among cards in play. And there we have it. Let's get into that breakdown. If we start with the breakdown, we had 16 actions, 18 creatures, 2 artifacts and 0 upgrades. There was 15 printed amber in the deck, and we had 1 damage, 1 capture, 2 draw and 6 discard enhancements in the deck. As always, we're going to start with Aember Control. In Star Alliance, we had the Sabotage Mission. Keys cost +1 for each different power value among friendly creatures during your opponent's turn. It's handy. Most of the time in the deck, it just gets played for the Amber Pip. And we have 2 Triangular Newsom. Also in Star Alliance. Now they have Deploy, so you can place them anywhere in your battle line when they enter play. After Reap, if you are haunted, move each amber from Triangulator Newsom's neighbours to your pool. It very rarely happens in this deck, and there's a reason for it. And I'll explain that when we get to the playthrough. In Mars, we had Brain Dart. 1 amber action, you enrage an enemy creature, it captures 1 from its own side. Pretty good, quite useful. Again, if it's in your hand, play it, but it's not something we search for. The same with the 2 Grabber Jammers. 1 with a discard pip, which actually helps us out. 4 power, 1 armor, our opponent's key cost gets increased by 1, and they have After Fight, After Reap, capture 1. Again, if they're in your hand, play them, but you're really searching for other cards. The same thing with the Abducto mechanic. 4 power, 2 armor, After Fight, if you're haunted, capture 2, or Scrap, the least powerful friendly creature, captures 2. Now the Scrap effect is quite handy in this deck to get our opponent's amber onto our creatures. And then we have the Distant Void Prober. After Reap, if you're haunted, your opponent's keys cost +3 during the next turn, or Scrap, an enemy creature captures 1 from its own side. Again, bit of expected amber from us there. We do tend to scrap our Mars cards. Then we get into Geistoid, which is the real MVP of this deck, and of most Grim Reminders decks, I think. Our lovely Maverick, Strength from Diversity. Originally from Star Alliance, we get the Amber Pip, it put a capture and a discard pip in the deck. When we play it, each friendly non-Star Alliance creature captures 1 amber. Now this is important for us because we want the amber on our Geistoid Spectre creatures. Now we do have Spectre creatures in the deck, and the reason we want them on our Spectres is because of this one here, Soul Tender. 1 power, it's a Spectre robot. Play an After Reap ability. Move each amber from each Spectre creature to the common supply. Fully heal and ward each Spectre. If you have a board full of Spectres, and then you play Strength from Diversity, and then you either play or Reap with Soul Tender, all that amber you've captured goes back to the common supply, and you now have a board full of warded Spectres. Now, if you are playing against a Grim Reminder deck, it will move all amber from their Spectres and fully heal and ward their Spectres as well. So just bear that in mind. It does get a bit more tricky. But our Geistoids and our Spectres in Geistoids We had 2 dark lamps. Again, each friendly creature with amber on it gains elusive. It tends not to matter too much because the amber goes back to the common supply, but the play effect of capture 1 is insane. Along with Tribute Collector, 4 power, 2 armor with taunt. Very nice to put next to your Soul Tender to protect them. Play after fight, a friendly creature captures 1 amber. If you can get a Geistoid board set up with this deck, there are ways to recur Strength from Diversity, which is very annoying and frustrating for your opponent, and I'll show you how you do it quite quickly in a second. Expected amber, we had a few things in Aember Control which are expected amber, but in Star Alliance we have Forging an Alliance. That's our key cheat. It got very nicely enhanced with a capture and a discard pip. Forge a key at +7 current cost, reduced by 1 to a maximum of 6 for each house represented among cards in play. You can get it to 6 if you and your opponent have different houses, but you're probably still going to pay quite a bit more for a key. I've pulled it off a couple of times. It's quite nice, especially if you lock yourself into Geistoids and you keep reaping out. It's a nice out for that final key. We have 2 Retro Technician Lee. One of them got 2 discard enhancements, which is quite good because it can make you haunted, plus you can put a creature in your discard that you're going to bring back that's probably out of house with this lovely reap effect of after reap, play a creature from your discard pile. In Mars, we had 2 Mars first. Again, Mars in this deck, not that important, but you can ready and use a friendly Mars creature. It's an Amber Pip on an action, not bad. Then we had Red Death. 12 power, so a big body on the board. Put that damage and 2 discard enhancements in the deck, but it cannot ready unless you are haunted. Now that cannot keyword overrides the action from Mars first. So you can try and play Mars first on Red Death, but if you aren't haunted, it will not ready. If you are haunted, it's quite a nice thing to ready up and fight again, because you gain an amber and draw a card. A little bit of expected amber and efficiency tied in. And in Geistoid, we had a haunted house. This one hit a draw enhancement, not bad. Passive effect, start of our turn. If you are not haunted, you discard the top card of your deck. This deck can get haunted quite quickly, so this tends not to matter. We kind of want cards in our discard pile as well. The Omni ability, if you're haunted game 1, that's a nice Omni ability. Now the only downside to this deck, I would say, there is no artifact control. And it is tough to play against heavy artifact decks that have good effects when I can't take them out. It's not impossible, but it's a struggle. Creature control. Star Alliance, we have Quintrino Warp action. Choose a friendly creature and an enemy creature. Destroy those creatures and each creature that shares a house with either of them. Gain 1 chain. Very nice ball clear. There are ways of us hitting it when we might not want to hit it, so it is something to be wary of. We have Unprepared. Highly underrated card, I would say. Action. Choose a house. Stun each creature of that house. Stun, as I've said in many of my previous videos, amazing ability that is very, very annoying to play against. In Mars, classic returning Scoop Up from Winds of Exchange. Put a friendly non-Mars creature and an enemy non-Mars creature into your archives. If the enemy creature would leave your archives, it goes back to its owner's hand. Scoop Up is very good used early on in this deck. We do call our archives quite a lot once we've got our setup, so not something that you're going to rely on. The Shrink Ray Technician. Choose an enemy creature, it gets -2 power until the end of turn. If there is an enemy creature that's taken damage and given it -2 power would kill it, fantastic. I tend to use this for the scrap ability to make a creature 1 power, 0 armor till the end of turn, because I want it in my discard pile unless I've got a specific other card in hand. Floexum Spewer, it gives its Mars neighbour splash attack, but again not used that much in this deck. And then we have the Grim Reaper. 4 power, if you're haunted, comes into play ready, so you can use them straight away. After Reap, purge an enemy creature and a friendly creature. There are certain creatures where if they're in play, we don't mind purging them on our side, but usually, if our Soul Tender is out and we've warded the board, we'll just pop a ward and purge one of our opponent's creatures. Very annoying and hard to deal with for the opponent. If we're looking at efficiency, surveys in there. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, discard 1. Pretty good. We like things in our discard pile in this deck. And then we have one of the mechanics of this deck. 3 event horizons. You play it and you discard cards from the top of your deck until you discard an action card or run out of cards. If you discard an action card, play that card. That's when you could hit Contrino Warp when you don't want to hit it. So just be careful when you play these. Now, what does happen a lot is you play an event horizon. It goes into an almost stack. You discard cards until you hit another action. And oh, hang on, you've hit another event horizon. Which means this goes on the stack and you put that there. Once that action's revised, you put that into the discard pile, then you put that into the discard pile. It gets a little bit confusing, but you get used to it. What you really want to do is mulligan until you get one of these or 2 of these into your opening hand, so you can make yourself haunted as quickly as possible and get as many Geistoid cards in your discard pile as you can. In Mars, we had the Terrible Teammates, which has an Aember Pip and a Draw Pip. Put a draw and a discard in the deck, but there's that play effect of you may discard a non-Mars card. You don't have to, but you can. And then we had Junk Restoration. And when you play it, put 2 discards in the deck. You discard the top 3 cards of your deck, and you can put a card discarded this way into your hand. There are things we fish for in this deck, and you'll see. Recursion. We had Mamet in Geistoid. Play, destroyed, archive the top card of your deck. We are looking to archive that Strengthening Diversity, but it's hard to do if you have a warded Mamet. But if you've discarded it, you could then play Mamet and then put it in your archive so you can recur it. Or what is more preferable is if you have the Echo Fly in play and you just use the action ability to return a card from your discard pile to your hand. You can play it on the same turn, but you won't be able to return it again. So there's a chance that things will get discarded on top of it. If you're going to return it to your hand, I would say save it until the next turn, because you can chain this Geistoid Aember Control. And then why do we want so many things from Geistoid in our discard pile? It's because of the Well of Memory. A fantastic artifact. When you play it, you purge any number of cards from your hand, and then for each card purged this way, you return a card from your discard pile to your hand. You want to purge mainly Mars at a push from Star Alliance to get those Geistoids back in your hands so you can set your board up with that Soul Tender and hopefully have the Strength and Diversity in hand as well, or you can bring that back with a Well of Memory. That's how you get it going. Now you've got an action, you can destroy Well of Memory and cycle it back in, which is quite good because you draw into it. You can purge more cards from your deck, so you're drawing into things a bit more easy. If you've got your Geistoid board set up, it doesn't matter if you're haunted or not. The only thing it's going to really affect is your haunted house. The only other card that didn't really fit into anything, apart from maybe helping us out a little bit, was Boo. This one hit a discard pip, so you're actually discarding 11 cards rather than 10, but 10 will go from the top of your deck. If you have Well of Memory in hand, this is a fantastic card to have really early on in the game. It's also very nice for dumping combo pieces out of your opponent's deck if they haven't drawn into them yet. But that's the breakdown of the deck. Let me just show you how it works. Ideally, you would have used the Event Horizon to go through your deck to have a relatively large discard pile. What I've done here is I've put everything in the discard pile. You want Well of Memory in hand. And you kind of want a selection of cards you don't mind purging in your hand as well. You might have some Geistoids out in play, but we're going to assume that we don't at this point. I'm going to play Well of Memory. I'm going to say I'm going to purge these 5 cards, so they go out of play underneath my Archon, and then I get to get 5 cards back from my discard pile. Now the ones we're really looking for are Tribute Collector, Strength and Diversity, and Soul Tender. That will get you going. What you also might want, the Grim Reaper if you are haunted. Possibly a Mamet or the Echo Fly. I would say the Echo Fly because you want the action to trigger. It does mean that you probably won't be able to play Strength and Diversity this turn, or if you do, it's going to get shuffled back into your deck. So the Mehmet, if the Echo Fly is not there. I'm going to do it with the Mehmet and then I'll show you how it works with the Echo Fly. So we've played our Artifact, then you want to play all other Spectres before you play Strength from Diversity, then you play Soul Tender. So we go Tribute Collector, it captures one from our opponent, so let's put one on there. We'll do Grim Reaper, which will probably come into play ready because we're most likely haunted. Then you've got an option. What I would tend to do if I just had this set up would be Strength from Diversity now, so I gain an Amber and then I capture 2. That goes to my top of my discard pile. I'll play Mehmet, which will archive Strength from Diversity. Then I'll play Soul Tender, which has a play ability of remove all this Amber back to the common supply, and then you ward each Spectre creature. So not only have I got my Grim Reaper ready, I could Reap, pop the ward on the Mehmet. I could Reap, pop the ward on itself. It is protected by that taunt. It really depends what your opponent has out on the board. But that is the kind of setup you want. If you've got the Echo Fly, you might want to taunt that up, because what that will do, that will allow you every single turn to return Strength from Diversity from your discard pile back to your hand with the action. So you're going to purge an opponent's creature every turn. You can use it to fight. You're playing Strength from Diversity, you'll capture 5, you'll Reap with Soul Tender, you'll put their Amber back in the common supply. The majority of the time, once you get it up and people realise that you can chain it, they will concede. Now I have played games where people have purged my Grim Reaper and purged my Soul Tender. In that case, you have to make do with what you've got in Star Alliance and Mars. And it's a struggle, but it's still a pretty strong deck even without this. But having this Maverick, absolutely insane. And Well of Memory, to get the Spectres out, it's a very annoying deck to play against. But that's how it works. If you see it on the Crucible, I probably lost a load of games and I really fancy a win. I'll leave a link in the description to the Master Vault link if you do want to take it for a spin. Have fun. Please don't get it a bad name on TCO. But yeah, I will see you probably at most tournaments with this deck. So now you know how to play against it. So it's probably a bad idea for me to make this video. But anyways, all that remains for me to say is good luck, have fun, keep forging.